Hi folks, Tino here with the countdown to kick-off as Celtic get set to face Aberdeen in a top-of-the-table clash this Saturday at Celtic Park. Joined for this one by Brydo. Brydo, your initial thoughts ahead of the big game?
Yeah, just looking forward to getting back to what I'd call proper football, mate. The international breaks just seem to take its toll on everybody. I think it's break after break at the minute. We can't really build proper momentum into the season. So, yeah, just kind of glad to get back to the 95, if you like, and hopefully get a good win, in which hopefully is a good game for Scottish football, having two unbeaten teams fighting out at the top.
Yeah, just as I was kind of putting this episode out on social media, just as you say, both teams 7 wins from 7, 100% records, but something's got to give this weekend, and it makes for an exciting game. What about the international stuff? So Paddy and the boys have been looking after things while I was away there, and one of the things they discussed was whether the international break came at the right time for Celtic. Do you feel, Brydo, after that tough night in Dortmund, and then obviously getting the late win over Ross County, it wasn't a bad time just to regroup ahead of the next set of fixtures?
Yeah, I suppose you could argue that point. For Celtic, we started off, like a train, and it looked like we were unstoppable, and we're going to win 4, 5, 6-0 every game, and then obviously momentum can be stopped in a number of ways: injuries, bad luck, bad decisions. But it came to a crashing halt in Dortmund. And you know what? Being the first kind of big game in the Champions League and the first game we've lost, I think it may actually be something that we can use and spin round as in some kind of positive in some way. It's 3 points lost. It was an absolute doing. The Ross County game, obviously off the back of that, that becomes a more difficult game than it would have been if Dortmund didn't spank us. So, and we kind of end up grinding that and making hard work of it. But again, spin it around to get a positive in that the team they didn't stop, and they kept going, and we deserved to win the game. But the subs, again, same as the Falkirk game, the subs having to come on and make a difference. I suppose that is what the squad's there for. But and we'll probably touch on the subs making a difference perhaps in the prediction for the starting 11 on Saturday.
What was your take on the Ross County game in general? It was a bit sluggish. Celtic weren't terrible, nothing like that, but just a bit sluggish, and it's the cliche of the European hangover. What do you think, Brydo? Is it hard for any player at any level to get their heads around a 7-1 defeat and then have to pick himself up? And we know how it goes in Scottish football. You need to, go far and wide at times, but to pick yourself up from that and have to then travel up for the kick-off on the Sunday up at Dingwall, is it just human nature that it's hard to get motivated for that?
Yeah, I think logistically it's a bit of a nightmare. You're travelling back. You've got all your sports science experts that would say you need so many days rest, and in between games, the managers obviously then want to prepare and keep ourselves honest for all right a lesser opposition. But travelling away up to Dingwall, it's not easy. I don't think it's certainly not easy. And if you're off the back of playing really, really, really well and looking the part, to then just getting an absolute serious dose of reality and saying, sit down, lads, just chill for a bit. This is how the big boys do it. It's quite hard then, because your ego's bruised a wee bit as well. We've been doing that to teams in Scotland throughout the season. So, in fact, for a few years, we've had to take our medicine. And the hope would then be, like I said, that we could spin that round at some point and be a positive. I think logistically it's difficult for the players, and then mentally. But when you're playing for Celtic, you've just got to do it. And to be fair to the players, they did get the job done, and that is what playing for Celtic is about. Try to do it with a bit of style, but ultimately you've still got to win the games. And we learnt a lot about the subs as well, like I said. So there are still positives in that result, even although the performance was, like I said, a bit kind of grinding out type.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, it was far less about the performance at Ross County. It was all just about getting the 3 points, resetting to a huge extent after the Dortmund experience, and then just kicking on. So they've done that, and we can now look forward to what's ahead on Saturday. In terms of international stuff, we've not heard much by way of updates, injuries or anything like that. So I don't have any great concerns there. There's a fair bit of travelling, Brydo. I was reading the article about Rio Hitati. I was in Japan. I'll chat about that on the Monday show, but managed to get to Japan via Australia. Great experience, great to see. The game finished 1 each. But Rio Hitati's gone out there with Daiz and Maeda and got 0 minutes. They've played 2 games. I think they played Saudi Arabia in their first game, didn't feature. Played Australia in the home game at Saipan Stadium and didn't feature there. And it's a long way to go for somebody like him. Alistair Johnson puts in the miles at times with Canada. You've got guys going all over the world, and he's now apparently requested to speak to the Japanese FA just to find out where he's at. Because I think if the manager was straightforward and says you're not going to play, then fine, you can make your peace with it and you can rest, recover, spend time with family, do what you need to do here. But I suppose it's all just part of the gig, isn't it? You need to go far and wide and hopefully get minutes here and there, but nobody can be guaranteed game time. But it's a difficult one for someone like Hitati. You can understand, can't you?
Yeah, I suppose from a Celtic perspective and point of view, we want him to go and play for his country and perform for his country, and for him to feel good about his performances at Celtic, enhancing that and allowing him to do that. It's in the profession he's in, though, and if he wants to play international football, he's not done enough to have a God-given right to go there and demand any minutes. We love him at Celtic, but even then, the last game, in fact, it wasn't great. He seems to have lost. He's either all sugar or all shite. That's basically how I see him. There's no other way about it. He's either unbelievable or you're kind of going, oh, what was wrong with Rio today? That's how I see it a lot of the time. On his game, I think he's as good as anybody we've got in the team. But in Japan, watching their games in the tournaments of late, and their manager's quite strict. He's not going to mess around or say, oh, that's a shame. Let's give him a game because he's travelled a few thousand miles. He's just not going to do that. So the only way that Rio Hitati can get minutes for his country is by performing on the stage for Celtic, especially in the games in the Champions League. And to get in the team for the Champions League, he needs to make sure he's doing it domestically. So he's ahead of the likes of Bernardo and Engels. So, yeah, I think it's a shame. It's not ideal that he has to travel out there, but it's on him. He needs to do it himself. And I don't really feel sorry for any players. You get paid a lot of money. They've got to go out there and do your job. And if you get picked, be ready.
Yeah, I'd be on the same page as you there. Just asking the question and all that stuff. But I think he came back from the last round of internationals, when was that, in September, saying that he felt he needed to do more. So he wasn't feeling sorry for himself or anything like that. But ultimately, if you're getting picked in squads, it means you're getting the chance to impress your national manager at close quarters, during the training sessions. And maybe he's just fallen short just now, and that's a challenge for him. And positive news, Engels get 10 minutes for Belgium. It was a 2-1 defeat to France, but 10 minutes for a very good side. Bernardo, just if we're staying on the midfield, he continues. I don't know if he's about 25 now, but he still plays for Portugal 21s for whatever reason. But that's all part of it. He's a captain there and very well respected. But let's get to the team. It's always interesting. There's some movers and shakers just now, but we'll see if we can land on something in terms of what Brendan Rodgers is going to do. I don't know if he shuffles the pack accordingly. I've seen a lot of chat around Luke McCowan, whether he comes in. But we'll start as always at the back. For me, the question mark will be in the left back area. I think we've now got a very interesting matchup between Greg Taylor and Alex Bailly. What do you think he'll do? So Bailly's obviously come in. Taylor was injured. I'm not sure how seriously injured after the Dortmund game. Maybe there was part injured, part needed a rest, but he came out of the squad for the Ross County game. Bailly came in and I thought he done pretty well. I like a lot of what he does. He's certainly a creative type. He possibly, and we've yet to see it, but he possibly has more going forward than defensively. He's not been hugely tested defensively in the games that we've seen him so far. So what do you think? Is it time now for him to become the starting left back for us?
I don't think he's done enough. I don't think he's done enough yet. I'm not going to say that he's not going to, because I've been quite vocal about the fact that I think we need an upgrade on Greg Taylor. But Greg Taylor, of late, has brought a lot to the party. People could say the Dortmund game, but when guys like Callum McGregor are giving the ball away like that, and everybody, the whole team were rubbish. then it's not just guys like Taylor that should get the brunt of it. I think if Taylor's fit, then I think he plays. There'll be other times in other games where I think Baye comes in and starts. And yeah, you're right. I think he does look good going forward. Defensively, we'll see how he gets tested. But the first kind of domestic test he got, he failed kind of miserably, if we're all being honest. But again, there's mitigating factors where he was just in, he's not played. So yeah, I can understand why there'd be a debate around it. But I just think that the role within the team, the kind of inverted fullback things, I think Celtic will still see a lot of the ball. And I think that'll be quite important to unlocking what I think will be a fairly sturdy Aberdeen team. So I think it's quite important that players it's so fluent. And that would mean that players would need to know their job inside out. And I think that would give Greg Taylor, that with the experience, would give him the edge. But there's been a lot of positive stuff about Baye, but there's also been some kind of question marks. And I think you're playing against a team in good form. Would that be the time to test it if Taylor's fit? I don't think so. I think Taylor gets the nod for me.
I can completely understand your rationale, but I think he's going to go Baye. It's just a feeling I've got just based on the way it's played out. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but there's certainly sense in playing a Greg Taylor who knows the fixture, knows the landscape, been here, done it, been pretty successful during his time at Celtic as well. So you could see if that was a move, but I also wonder if Brendan Rodgers is now thinking that Baye is that guy that he wants to nudge forward. We've obviously got a huge game against Atalanta just round the corner as well, and I wonder if that might come into his thinking. So we'll see what plays out. A couple of decent options there certainly, and we'll see what he does. The bigger question, I suppose, in the centre defence is whether Cameron Carter-Vickers returns. He obviously picked up his injury before the break, didn't travel with the USA for their couple of games, and we await news news on whether he comes straight back into the team. If he doesn't, it's Liam Scales, fresh off the back of his first goal for Ireland, and credit to him, and Austin Trusty, who's had, I don't know, would you say a mixed time since he came
in? Trusty's, I mean, we spent a bit of money on him. But I suppose you've got to give, I always say that about defenders, you've got to give the defence a chance to play with each other a few times and cover each other's backs. But are we in a better position when Liam Scales is the gaffer at the back? I'm not too sure. But he has been very good. So I'm not having a go at Scales being there. Trusty, I think, under a bit of pressure, just seems to be a wee bit headlights, what's going on type stuff, and that involves him finding that character and strength of character and mentality to deal with that. And being at Celtic, you have to be like that, and you have to be exposed as a defender as well at Celtic, because we do attack, especially in domestic games, so you need to be able to deal with one-on-ones, and I'm not quite sure he's shown a lot with that. Aberdeen have got some decent attacking players as well, and he's going to have to be on his game big time, because they've got a bit of pace. I think Nisbet might start for them, and he's decent in the air and stuff. For that, his movement's good. He's a decent finisher, so you can't give him much space. So Trusty, I think Trusty probably will start. I think that I had a wee look today. It looks like Carter-Vickers, the noise is still that he's injured. So, but we massively miss him.
Yeah.
Like, it was the same last season. Remember the Motherwell game last year, and Ida comes on and scores the goals, but Carter-Vickers had came on, and that's when we started to play with half an hour to go. It's amazing the difference that guy brings to our team. And then it's no coincidence that when he's not playing, or he's injured the games he's not been there, we drop points, or we lose, or we look sticky. So he's a massive, massive part to what the manager wants to do. So I think even if Trusty gets in, it's just not a stay of execution. That's a bit unfair, but I think Carter-Vickers will come back in, and I don't see what Scales has done wrong to be shifted from that spot. So I'd imagine if Carter-Vickers is injured, it's fairly obvious. It'll be Scales and Trusty, but if Carter-Vickers was to be fit, and we'll maybe find out more tomorrow with the press conference and stuff, then I think most Celtic fans would see it as a fairly straightforward Carter-Vickers goes straight back in without a doubt.
You've got that thing with Carter-Vickers, and you get it with a few players, in that you only realise how important they are when they're not on the side. And I think, during his, what's that now, 3 and a bit years at Celtic, that's been the case with Carter Vickers. He's been unfortunate, actually, that he's picked up injuries around about Champions League time. I think the record is that he's missed something like 5 or 6 Champions League games alone, during his time here, which is a big frustration because it's one of the main reasons he'll have made the call to come to Scotland. But I think, as I say, when he's not in the team, it's going to sound blatantly obvious, we're just not as good a side when he's not there. So we'll need to see, and whether he's back against Aberdeen or not, hopefully he's back pretty soon. Before we continue, big thanks to everyone who's joining us in the live and continues to comment. We've got Gypsy King, Mark, P. McLaughlin, Doc's just joined us there. So thanks for the comments. Keep them coming in. Myself and Brydo will try and get to them between now and the end of the show. We've got another 15 minutes or so. We generally take 30 minutes for these pre-match episodes. If you're unable to make any comments or questions, you do need to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. Very easy to do, just a quick click of a button, and then you can comment as you wish. Brydo, we'll get to the midfield. I suppose it's the ongoing what three, isn't it? We've got 5 options in there just now. Callum McGregor, Paulo Bernardo, Reo Hatate, Arnie Engels and Luke McCowan. And there's merit in any of the 5, being part of that 3. Callum McGregor's always going to be part of it. He's your captain. I don't know if Arnie Engels, despite the price tag, the 11 million price tag, is a guaranteed starter right now, and nor should he be, nor should anyone really. But I think over the piece, he's going to be the guy that features alongside McGregor. And then there is a real debate for the 3rd position. I think at the moment, Bernardo seems to be the one in form, but Luke McCowan's done very little wrong at Celtic, done particularly well, actually, as you say, when he came on against Ross County. And Reo Hatate maybe a wee bit out of sorts at this moment in time. But what do you think? What's your 3 for this specific fixture? It's that situation, Bridie, where the manager needs to make calls on individual games. The right 3 against Dortmund might not be the same 3 against a Ross County or Aberdeen. But what's the 3 you see for this weekend?
I think based on just performance, I think, and what we've seen over the piece, so Bernardo's obviously had the luxury of having a lot longer than McCowan, for example. I think Bernardo would be the one, and I think Engels is almost a starter, to be honest. I think he's shown enough, I think, anyway. Certainly when we're playing well, he's right on it, he's involved. Again, the Dortmund game, and then obviously off the back of that, the Ross County game. But he's still young and he's learning how to cope with that, like we discussed earlier. So I think it's a case of McGregor, Engels and Bernardo would be the starting 3. It's vitally important, Aberdeen will play a certain way. They'll have the boy Shinnie. They've got the other boy in the middle of the park that they brought in, Kiskinen or something like that. And as a Nielsen, sorry, they'll be holding midfielders. They will 100% play 2 deep line midfielders, and Aberdeen will probably want the ball in the middle of the park. That's where they'll probably want it. I think they'll just try and suffocate Celtic and try and catch us in the break with some decent pace. But and they'll work really hard at doing that. I think if we're going to play the players that come in, they need to get the ball shifted really quickly. All of them can do it. And if I see McCowan's name, I have to be honest and say that when I thought we signed McCowan, I thought, it's just a kind of filling the spot. That's my agent on the phone. It's talking my stellar performance tonight. I think McCowan has surprised me, to be honest, with these performances, and it's obviously in a good way. So if he was to start on Saturday, again, he came on, the subs in the Ross County game made a massive difference, and he was 100% one of them. So I think it'll be Bernardo, just based on he's maybe got more in the tank. But yeah, I think Hatate's the one that's just not performed yet, and I think it's up to him to get back to the game that we know that he can play. So yeah, I think it'll be Bernardo, Engels and McGregor.
I agree with you. It's exactly what I'd be going with. Gypsy King in the comments is the same. Bernardo, Kalmack and Arnie Engels. And I think that's what we'll see. But it's good to have that strength and depth. And if it's not working for any given one of those 3 on their day, then there's decent options there to freshen it up. Up top, Brydo, I suppose the ongoing question is the number 9. I think at the moment, on paper, certainly you've got Dyson Maeda and Nicholas Kuhn. They're your starting wingers. They're the 2, I think, most effective wingers. Very different players, very different games. again, I'll need to double check Nicholas Kuhn's stats, but he's got something like 14 goal contributions in 8 or 9 games so far. It's incredible stuff. And I think on the big wide park at Celtic Park, it suits him down the ground. He didn't have a good night in Dortmund, but who did? It wouldn't be singling him out to say that. I just think it was a rough ride. I do think he was tasked with staying high and right on that particular evening, and he got a lot of criticism for not tracking back and whatever. For me, it looked like he was playing to manager's instruction, so you can't criticise a guy for doing that. But it wasn't his night, as was the case with quite a lot of the boys. But I think on Saturday, he would start high and right for me, Dice Maeda high and left. And there's the ongoing question, is it Kyogo, who I think, pound for pound, is your best striker? But Adam Maeda can be effective in different ways. A bit out of sorts for Ireland. I know he was sub not used in their second game. Need to double check if he get minutes in their first game. I'll check while we're on here. But he is a wee bit off it just now. So on that basis, I would expect Kyogo to be the man. But what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much agree with that, mate. I think Kyogo, I think somebody had mentioned this before in one of the other shows we've done, was that Kyogo isn't really, he's not really, he's never really impacted a game as a sub, has he? I've never really remember him. I know he's not been a sub a lot, but I just never remember him having that kind of crazy impact when he comes on. It's as if he needs to just be the main guy doing what he does best. I mean, a lot of this will come down to how quickly we move the ball, and if we find Kyogo in the spaces that he creates, with his movement's second to none. His movement's as good as anything I think I've ever seen at Celtic. So it's finding that movement and finding the spaces that he creates. Whether or not we can do that enough, and then therefore give him enough chances to get these goals, will remain to be seen. Like I said, Aberdeen's manager, he's got a history of being in a team which is far inferior and still getting big wins, beating teams like Malmo and things like that in his leagues and stuff, and doing it by having like 20% of possession and things like that. So he knows how to win games like that. And it'll be interesting to see how he approaches it. And I think that will determine, obviously, on how effective our players are too. So we've got to show them respect. But we are Celtic, we're at home, we should be fully expected to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And if we do that, then Kyogo 100%, as you said, would be essentially your main man, and that's the guy that gets us over the line and gets the 3 points. So definitely, I think Kyogo's got to start. Ida, you're right, he is out of sorts a wee bit, but it's still very, very early in our season, and he's not. I think it's always easier if you are told by the manager that, right, you're my number 9 and you've got the jersey unless you have 3 or 4 bad games in a row, and then you can go with confidence and play. I think there's still a big question mark for him over what's where's his lane? Am I the main man? You spent £9 million on me. Am I a sub every week? What am I? What part of it am I? So I think he's got to either force the issue and perform better, and grab the jersey from Kyogo, or he needs to just keep making impacts in games if he's not starting. He started the game at Ross County, I think, didn't he? He started that game.
Yeah.
And at home, obviously it's away from home, but that should be suiting him against physical defenders and things like that, So, yeah, I think for me it'd be Kyogo, but Ida needs to just keep his head down, and the goals will come, because he's a very, very good player.
Yeah, he's a talented guy. Comment from P. McLaughlin. He's saying we've spent $9 million on a super sub, and he thinks that Ida is better coming off the bench. I agree with that. I think it just seems to be the case. It was abundantly clear last season that he came off the bench to such positive effect on so many occasions. It wasn't coincidence. Cup final being the big example. The showpiece, the final game of the season, he comes on and scores the winner. Whereas Kyogo, generally speaking, has always started for Celtic, and when he doesn't start and when he does come off the bench, doesn't really work for him. It just seems to be something that doesn't fit. And no player, certainly no striker, wants to be known as a super sub, because that means you're kicking your heels more often than not. But I don't know, in the modern game, sometimes people just find their way, find their place, and maybe that's just the thinking. I remember Brendan Rodgers making the comment when we finally got the Ida signing over the line, and he said something like, he was asked who his number 1 was. He went, I've got 2 number 1 strikers now, which is a bit of a cop-out. But I wonder how he manages that internally, because that is a challenge. You've got Celtic play with one main striker. You can only go with one of Kyogo or Ida. And I wonder how he manages that internally. But going back to Aberdeen, and it seems to be the case with a lot of the comments here as well, Kyogo seems to be the favoured player for that one, and that's what I would go with too. Aberdeen, it's just been such an interesting start to the campaign, hasn't it? I think when the appointment was made of Jimmy Thelin, a lot of folk, well, certainly I didn't know who he was, and folk were checking him out. Since then, Brydo, he came in June, I believe, and since then, he's taken Aberdeen, who have been no great shakes for some time, to 13 wins on the bounce. 13 straight wins, no draws, no defeats. And I know a lot of folk will say about who have they played, and they've still to play Celtic, they've not yet played Rangers and a few other sides. But you can only take care of what's in front of you. And in that score, and I know some have been, neat wins, the late winner against Hearts and all that stuff, but on that score, massive credit to them for what they've done so far.
I spent a bit of time up in Aberdeen. I lived up there for five years or so, and I mean, they're mad for their team. I mean, it's just a one team city. So I've always felt like they should have been managed behind the scenes a lot better than they have been. And then I'm glad because for Scottish football in particular, I'm glad that they're actually, got their act together, and they've got a guy in who, I think the biggest thing is that they've got a guy who's got an identity, and he's got a style, and he's got a way of how he conducts himself. I think he talks quite well after the games. He's got a team. He's brought players in specifically for that style. He's not having to pick up, bring in Neil Warnock, for example. What on earth were they doing when that happened? I mean, it's like Aberdeen Football Club, I will pick a guy because he fishes up here now and again. Do you know what I mean? It's absolute bonkers. So they've got a guy in, it looks like at the minute the right guy, but football changes that quickly. I mean, he played against Hearts, and Hearts could easily win the game. And a few of the Aberdeen games that I have seen, they haven't been like awesome. They've not been, wanting to beat teams 5 and 6-0, but what they have got is they're very, very, very well organised. They know what they're doing, and they grind out results if they have to. And that, to get all of them wins, no draws, that's very, very impressive, no matter who you're playing. And yes, they're going to come up against harder teams, but if we're all being honest, Hearts would have been the third best team in the league at the start of the season, without a doubt. So they've put them to bed. Really good game, by the way. And the manager's now found himself in the position that the Aberdeen manager was in last year, and it's now flipped, and it's that quick. Hearts are now the struggling team, sacked their manager. That was Aberdeen last year. So it can change very, very quickly. But for me, he's got his team very, very well organised, and it'll be a tough test for us on Saturday. And I think the first goal will be absolutely crucial. So we just need to do what we do best, and do what we did at the start of the season, and just come out the traps and get at them, because they've got some seriously good players that play in a very, very well organised fashion.
Yeah, and they'll come here full of confidence. You can't not be in confident mode after winning 13 games, the whole thing. But, winning breeds confidence. It becomes a habit, and it seems time. So fair play to Jimmy Thelin for that. I was mentioning that, quote unquote, they've not played anyone of great note so far. I'm just repeating what others have said. So P. McLaughlin and others have kind of said, they've still beat 7 teams and different things. I say it with all respect. I think it's great, and I think real credit to them. So I'm all for what they're doing. And in terms of who they've beat, I'll just read out the teams they've beaten in the league so far. They beat Hearts 3-2, late winner there just the other week. They beat Dundee, and a lot of folk have been, singing Dundee's praises. They beat them at Dens Park. They beat Motherwell. They beat Ross County 1-0 away from home. They beat Kilmarnock 2-0 at home. They've also beat St Mirren 3-1. And St Johnstone on the opening day, they won 2-1 away from home. They took care of the League Cup campaign, and obviously they're up against some lesser lights, but they dealt with what they dealt with. They'll now face us in the semi-final of the League Cup, and they're going great guns. And I think having no Europe will help them, and that's good for them. It'll allow them time to rest and recover and find their feet. And I just think it's set up for a cracker, Brydo. There's a whole debate about it's not being televised. I don't have a great issue with that. People have bought season tickets. They're getting to see the game in fair play. Other fans can watch in a variety of ways, or they can catch the highlights later on. And I think Celtic were right to knock back the 75 grand from Premier Sports. I think it's a bit of an insult in terms of a fee, so that's fine. And I just think the stage is set. I might sound a bit facetious when I'm saying this, but right now it's the top 2 teams in the country. There's no getting away from it. And I think, Brydo, it's particularly healthy for Scottish football when you see a strong Aberdeen. I'd like to see a strong Hibs, a strong Hearts, a strong Dundee United and all that kind of stuff. Maybe those teams will find their feet. But right now, I think it's great to see, and it's a real good story getting into this weekend.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's what we're wanting. We want, and you're right. Yeah, don't put it on the TV. Like Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs. We've grown up going to games like that, So yeah, and Celtic are 100% right. You're bang on with that, mate. So this is what we want. You want to be going to the game. You want to be saying to yourself, it's not a given. There's proper competition. Aberdeen are a well-run, like I said, they're a good club, good fan base and stuff like that as well. They've sold out their allocation, so it'll be a really good atmosphere. And it's two teams, something's got to give somewhere. I'm still pretty confident that Celtic will get the win, but it's not going to be easy. They've got some really good players. Even guys like Shinnie, for example, in the middle of the park, he will run all day. He'll kick everything but the ball all day, but he'll run, and he'll make it difficult for Celtic. And they've got other guys there, like I said before, the boy Nisbet, the boy is Morris. I think they've got in the wing. He's electric pace. There's one player actually I wanted to talk about. It was the boy Jack McKenzie at left back. Now I spoke about him for about 18 months or so now. I honestly think that, and when I say this, I don't want folk going mad. His style of left back is very similar to Kieran Tierney's style of left back. And what I mean by that is he's very, very strong, and he's a strong runner. And it's like he doesn't need to do much. He can just knock the ball past, and he beats the kind of fullback or whatever within a couple of yards, and he can get a ball across. But he's very physical, but he's pretty decent on the ball as well. And I think he's a player that anytime I've seen him, he's performed really, really well. So yeah, Aberdeen have got their own journey and they've got their own agenda. And fair play to them for that, and they deserve every bit of it. But it's still early in the season. I know a few Aberdeen fans, they don't think they're going to win the league, but they genuinely believe they could split the two. That's what they genuinely believe based on what they've seen from all parties, Celtic, Aberdeen and Rangers. So good luck to them with that. That's all I'm saying. Good luck.
I mean, the evidence is there, Brydo. At this moment in time, I don't know, Rangers might find their feet, but they've been pretty shambolic so far this season. And I think on the evidence that we've all seen, Aberdeen have got to be a fair shout. Keeping in mind that with 7 wins from 7 for the Toys, we're both sitting on 21 points, and I think Rangers are 5 behind that on 16. So there's a gap there just now, and Rangers need to be careful that that doesn't start to grow too much. And you're right in what you're saying. There's a number of really decent players at Aberdeen right now. I think it looks like, and without knowing their squad in depth, but, having glanced at it and watched the different results, it looks like they've spent the Majowski money well. I think they get a record fee for him, I don't know, 7-8 million. And they seem to have recruited well, whether that's directly through Jimmy Thellin's knowledge of the game and his contacts, or if it's done behind the scenes at Aberdeen, who knows. But they've signed some very decent players, in addition to some very good players that were already there. Clarkson was there, Leighton Clarkson, Shinnie's the captain, Duke, who seems to have come out his huff. He didn't start the season, but he's come back in now that his team's winning, he wants to play again. And I think Celtic just really need to be on their toes. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think, as opposed to some teams that come and park the bus, even teams that are in decent form generally come and park the bus at Celtic. I've not seen that from Jimmy Thellin's Aberdeen. I think they want to go and attack and take the game to Celtic and teams like us. So let's see how it all plays out. I think it's set to be a really exciting matchup. Different comments coming in. Thanks to everyone that's continuing to comment in the live. Henrik McLarson was asking if we're live, because sometimes we do put out shows after the fact, but we definitely are. And Henrik, if you've got a comment, or if anyone else has got a comment over the next few minutes, let us know. We'll try and catch it. In fact, let us know your scoreline predictions, because I'm about to put that very question to Brydo. Brydo, two teams on great form, as I say, 7 wins from 7. Celtic only conceded their first goal against Ross County, let alone their first draw or their first defeat. So tells you exactly where Celtic are at. And as I say, Aberdeen flying high, full of confidence, and really keen to try and at least cement that second place. So how do you see it going? How do you see both teams approaching it? Are they going to come and go for it? Will Celtic be too strong? And what do you think the final score will be?
The final score, I think I'll go for a Celtic win. I was going to say 2 or 3-1, but I'll say 3-1. Just think that a few of the players have had a rest, and hopefully just kind of kickstart it again. So I'll say 3-1. But Aberdeen, I think they'll get a goal, unfortunately. I just think if Carter Vickers was playing, I'd say they won't, but I just think that partnership at the back still a bit, I was going to say rusty, rusty with trusty there, but I think I just think that they're just not quite where we want to be in that position at the park, and they have got a threat through, like I said, Nisbet. I think the boy in Gaze, he's still injured, but they've got the boys at Sockler, I think, so they've got options up there at the centre forward position. And you mentioned the guys like Duke, who would start every game for them before. He's now on the bench. He's not necessarily starting games. So, I'll say 3-1 because I think their strengths at home, in particular as well. I just think that will be too much for them. But it'll maybe be like a 2-1 with till 10-15 minutes to go, and I think they'll try and open up a bit, and hopefully then we'll finish the game off. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really good game.
Yeah, definitely. A few scores coming in. I'll read through some of them. Kaiser, good to see Kaiser in the comments. He says 2-1 at the Hoops. Bryzo, he was doubting our live credentials. He asked me to wave a spoon at the camera to prove we're live. I don't have spoons in the spare bedroom here, Kaiser, but I can assure you we are. So he's gone for 2-1. The Jagged God, he's gone 3-2. G-Doc, Doc, he's gone for 5-1. Henrik McLarson, 4-2. 4-1 for B. Any other scores? I think that's about it. Maybe a few others elsewhere, but I think 2-1 Brydo. I think Celtic will come good, but I don't think it'll be an easy game by any stretch. You could see Aberdeen going for it at different points in the game. I don't think they'll come gung ho and go for it across the 90 minutes, but I think at times they'll attack with a bit of threat, and that could see us concede. So I think 2-1. But I'm fairly confident that Celtic will get the win, and at that point, it's up to us to then kick on and try and open a gap again. It's unusual for Celtic. We've not had it all our own way in the last few years. We've had to fight for, various things domestically, but generally speaking, we start to pull away fairly quickly, and it's not quite happened this time around. So how do you think the players will feel going into it? It's obviously good to get back to it after international stuff, but again, I've talked a lot about Aberdeen. Celtic's players should be pretty confident as well, shouldn't they?
Yeah, and that's the champions of the country. The players know what it's like to win, most of them. They've all, even Kuhn and Ida were involved last year. They know what it's like to play in the tougher games, and they know what it feels like to get the end of that with a win. So I think, again, it comes down to the manager and the environment that he creates, and that is, you don't rest on your laurels. And even if it's got to bounce back from difficult situations, the manager will be right on that, and it'll be, the importance of the game, the importance of what it means, the importance to go top of the league on our own. And yeah, I think with that leadership and the experience of the players as well, your Casper Schmeichels, Callum McGregor's, we kind of say it from week to week, but in those moments, that experience is crucial, and that should help guys like Engels and Bernardo hopefully be able to relax into the game and then impact the game with their talent. And that's what we're looking for. And we're looking for these guys to step up. And when they do, it'll make us talk about them even more. It'll make us even more positive about the season ahead. So, yep, the confidence is there, but it's a respectful confidence just based on the team we're playing against. And but I fully expect us to go home with a 3 point.
Yeah, I think so as well. But just the last one, and we've not kind of touched on it much at all, but do you think the game against Atalanta, next big Champions League game, which is on Wednesday out in Italy, Bergamo, do you think that will impact anything? How we approach it, how Brendan Rodgers picks his side, or do we really need to just take care of business on a game-to-game basis? He'll always say, we've heard it so many times now, the next game is always the most important. Will that be the mantra for the weekend?
Yeah, I think that's the noise that'll get made by all the experienced people that are there. It's one game at a time. This is the team in front of us. We need to put them to bed. But, it might, when you mentioned about decisions that the manager will make, if Greg Taylor, for example, isn't quite fit, he might not start him because he wants him fit for midweek, or be a proper option for midweek. Same with Carter Vickers. If he's not quite ready, but he might be, 100% ready midweek, then he might not throw him in. So we'll find out more, obviously, after the press conferences and the kind of injury updates as to what we think he'll do. But in a mindset kind of way, I think Celtic have been over this course before. We've had big games in the past. It tends to always be the game after it that we've kind of got that from the high it's quite difficult to then maintain that going into a big fixture. But this is the it's not the price you pay for being the Champions League and playing big games. It's just that is just the way of it, and we've just got to accept it. And we have a decent squad, and therefore it should be used as best we possibly can. So it might give us a hint for the games on Wednesday. You know, you never know. There's some of the players that come in, you might go, right, okay, he's maybe resting players, but I just don't see that. It's not really Rodgers' style, I don't think, to do that much.
Yeah, it's not something he does often. He done it against Falkirk. He made a number of changes, and I think he instantly regretted it, didn't he? He made that quote after the game, or gave that quote after the game. No, I think we'll see. I think two very different games. Home to Aberdeen, away to Atlanta. We'll obviously do the pre-match going into next week, probably Tuesday. We'll have the countdown to kick off for Atalanta, but plenty to keep us busy in the meantime. Brydo on a big one against Aberdeen to look forward to. Some brilliant comments coming in, some mad comments coming in too, but great to see everyone commenting on the live. Brydo, your final comments ahead of what I've called, as I say, a top of the table clash.
Yeah, just looking forward to it. Glad that the real football's back. Like you say, top of the table clash, two teams on form, so it should be a really good game, and a good game that Celtic perform really, really well and go away with the points, and making it no mistake to anybody that yes, they're doing okay, but they've got levels to go to reach ours. And maybe I'll actually get my lights fixed in my house as well. That's probably one of my lasting comments on the situation I've got at the minute.
Times are hard, Brydo, but we'll see what we can do for you in the shape of a couple of light bulbs. As I say, thanks to everyone that's joined us here on the live. Thanks to everyone who continues to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast and their thousands. The support's always really appreciated. We'll be back shortly after the game with the final whistle show. But in the meantime, from myself and Brydo, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy Saturday. We'll see you very soon.